Hello everyone, so welcome to the session and let's try to deep dive into some more interesting things about the lighting. And first of all, we'll try to understand something about the agenda of today's session. So in today's session, we are going to understand some important thing that in the lightning structure or while working on lightning what all essential things we need to deal with and what all the important things are there which you need to understand. So in this process I'm going to tell you one important thing that in Salesforce Lightning, whenever we are going to work and implement any kind of functionality, there are important phases that we need to understand and implement. For example, working on Salesforce or implementing and working on Salesforce mobile or working on Salesforce record pages. So there are many things in which we need to work on. So let me now tell you that one important thing that where actually we can take the benefit of the lightning things. So point number one, we are going to see scope of lightning component, and before that one more important thing, life cycle details of lightning. So if you see that currently lightning is still new for many companies or many projects, and this is one of the reason you have a very good opportunity to crack the interview, because mostly companies will not go into much depth and ask you very detailed question. Even if you have some basic knowledge and basic understanding, they are okay to proceed with. And this is one of the reason why many of my previous batch students get a quick job in lightning, because uh, the even interviewers don't know many things about lightning, not in, they know some basic things but not in depth. So if anyone does a small effort and all and uh, perform some kind of mini assignments, or let's say mini project kind of thing, then it will be very easy for you to get a quick job. And then once you get an entry in a company, then it is not going to make big problem for you to. So when you join a company or get a job, it will not be any problem for you to start working and get the benefit of this lighting structure, because comparatively you will get that time and sufficient scope which your company will give. So just try to get some entry anyhow, and that's it. Then the future is yours. Okay, so now I'm going to start with some important things here that which recently few my students got questions in interview. So we are at the very initial phase of the lightning, by the way. Whatever we are learning, we just started our journey. So here, suitable to that phase, let me first of all take the point which is useful for interview, and let's proceed. This was recent interview question asked in IBM, and life cycle details of lightning. Okay, so now here first of all you need to explain them that how the lightning structure works, or what is the significance of this lightning component, or how they are divided. You don't need to tell lots of details, just the basic thing or the structure is sufficient for them? This is something again which is a popular interview question. So let me tell you one by one. First of all, let me log into Salesforce environment, and let me log into Lightning. Just give 1 second. So I'm just going to log into Salesforce environment. So this is classic. So let me now move to Lightning. So there has been some recent changes, by the way, in the Lightning in terms of look and feel, because if you see now, the home page is distributed or divided like cards now in Lightning. Various cards are there, and apart from that, even the latest thing, if someone asks you in interview that what new things in terms of UI, that we can even set the themes and all. Can you see the background? Some designs are there. So this was not present previously. You can see some designs are there, and we can just go to setup. In the setup, in the quick find, type theme and look at the option themes and branding, and you can just uh, enable, disable the themes necessary for your company, and etc, etc. So this is a new thing which came into the Salesforce environment recently. Just keep in mind, because sometimes this also comes in interview. Okay, now we'll proceed for that life cycle details of Lightning and try to understand how we can explain these things in the interview in the short manner. So point number one. So let me open Lightning component. So click on this. How to open Lightning component? Click on this and go to developer console. Okay. So we cannot do. We must go to developer console and perform the Lightning activities. So click on this. Okay. Then you can just uh, open any Lightning component. Let me just open existing Lightning component. Let's say anything which is existing there. Okay, now pay attention how actually it is divided. Don't worry about the code and don't focus on the code also, because anyways that you are going to get command on in upcoming session, so you don't need to worry about this. Just understand and uh, go through the detailings laterwards. So first of all, let me tell you one important thing, that whenever you write the Lightning component or you do Lightning uh, programming, then the division will be like this. First of all, A, Lightning app. Okay, so the Lightning app is the main thing that we are going to understand, and let me just mention something about that. It's entry point. So it's, or the the important thing about this is to understand this is the required source. This is the important source in the uh, bundle. Okay, so this is like going to contain some markup for the component for the application, and each bundle contains only one component or app. So let me just mention here. So app is mandatory for calling the lightning functionality in VF page. Now we can write any kind of lightning functionality and call it on the Visual Force page and use it for the feature. So there are two ways. Suppose you're writing or you're performing lightning programming, then this is, let's say, your lightning environment, which is I'm writing lex. And this is what the password of the session is. Lex means lightning experience. So something you're doing in lightning and using within the lightning, that is the regular thing. But apart from that, there are some situations in which you need to take the benefit of this lightning in the classic also, because it's not possible that immediately your company will be ready for moving from lightning to from classic to lightning. So they will say keep the classic thing as it is, keep the uh, functionalities like Visual Force pages and all as it is, and then after that we will see how we can shift the thing, or we will see how we can transfer the activity laterwards. So in this case you have the solution called as lightning out, and in this lightning out you definitely going to take the benefit of the lightning app that we'll see in future. Just remember that we can bring it like this. This is entry point for the lightning process, and this calls the lightning component. Okay, so this is the lightning app. Now in this case, let me just show you by creating lightning app, and then we are going to call the lightning component. So first of all, what I will do, let me show you. Click on file, click on new, and click on lightning application, and calling lightning component. Okay, and app. Click on submit, and if you want this component should be used, this lightning application should be used and being called in Visual Force page and all, at that time you go for this option. Right now it's not in scope, so submit. Okay, now after this we will write here code for calling one or many components. That's all. This application mostly is being used by calling one or many components, and that's it. Okay, you don't need to do much thing about much thing in application, even in real-time projects. No much use, just an entry point, and that's it. But your lots of efforts will be spent on now in components, what you are going to write there, or what you are going to do there, etc., etc. So let's write a component now so that we can call here. So right now, if I just save this, if I just save this, and let me create one component. Now you can see, and now we'll do one thing. We'll just continue the same lightning component application for the next real time, or you can say mini project activity, because in our journey we are going to see so many real time case studies and all. So we will continue with using the current application. So what I'm going to do is, let me first of all create this component and call another component, and then let me show you how we'll reuse the same component in multiple cases. So click on this new lightning component, calling lightning component, and just remove the application, or let's say you can give call lightning component, you can give any name. Okay, and please note that here one more important thing. Here in the scope of lightning component, you need to understand that approximately there are, every month, approximately in every release, in fact Salesforce is bringing multiple ways to call a lightning component. Every release Salesforce bringing multiple ways, because Salesforce is very serious to ensure that now this lightning component will be our day-to-day thing. We should not be able to skip lightning component. This is what exactly they are expecting, and that is the reason in this case what we are going to do is, here we are going to understand at least 5 ways by which we can call the lightning component. Because of this, you will be able to at least face the interview questions, when they are definitely going to ask you some questions about the scope. Also there are some popular questions like, while calling the lightning component, what different interface we use. So in this case, please note what we are going to do is, we are going to understand that if you are going to call on action, then how we are going to do that. You are going to override the component, then how you are going to do this, and suppose you are going to call this in a record page, how you are going to do this. So there are so multiple ways. At least you keep in your mind 5 6 options which are very necessary. So this is one more important interview question that I saw recently. Okay, so let's continue. Now I'm going to create the component. So see, call lightning component, submit. Okay, now understand, this is going to call this. Okay, so this is the format, or directly you can call this also, that I'm going to tell you as a point number 2, where I told you that by what ways we can call lightning component. Okay, so now here, markup of business scenario, or markup related to business scenario, and here mostly we write everything same like Visual Force page. Okay, so let's talk about now component, as we are in the second phase. So the second phase is lightning component. So what is the significance of that? So this contains the main UI code. So whatever you will see in the lightning, and whatever code is actually, you generally see buttons you see, or fields you see, or some kind of cards you see, banner you see, or anything in lightning you see, that all because of component. 99% 99% whatever you are going to see, anything you see in lightning, is everything coming from component. In a very rare cases, we also do some kind of thing in application, but that is now very rare. Okay, so everything right here. And this is now the main important thing for us who are coming from the classic programming background. Please note, this is replacement of VF page. So now anyone who is having doubt that when actually we are moving from uh, whenever we are moving from the classic to lightning, then what all the things are going to happen, or what all we need to release or remove or leave. Then please note, from going to classic to lightning experience, you have to leave the most important thing, that is visual force page, because here the visual force page is replaced by lightning component. Apart from that, the things like triggers, that is okay, that we can continue. Apart from the things like apex class, that also we can continue, but visual force page is gone. Okay, next. Now here, second thing, that in the component, this is mandatory item in lightning bundle. So what is the meaning of lightning bundle? So this, you can see at the right hand side, is called as lightning bundle or lightning. uh, you can say the entire structure of lightning project is dependent on this. Various levels are there, various things are there, you need to divide your entire project in this. Okay, so in this, whether you don't write anything in controller, fine, no problem. You don't write anything in svg, no issues. But you must write in the component. It's a mandatory thing, you must write in the component as a beginner level thing, as an entry point of this bundle. So let me tell you the next thing. So second thing is controller. So this is B. Now C, client side controller. Now here, whenever we are going to write any kind of markup, after that, if we want to do any kind of event handling or logical thing related to that, then we go for client side controller. Now let me just show you the code in that. For example, a sample code I will show you, that how we write the business logic in this. So just give 1 second. Let me show you one existing project, then you'll get the idea. Just give 1 second. Okay, now look at this. Look at one existing project. Okay, now here if you can see, lots of efforts are spent in components, like writing the UI and all the things like the tags like visual force page. But after this, what actually behind the scene is going to happen, this will be done in controller. You can see here, we are writing various functions by which we are going to perform this activity, and every code is divided in function. You can see here, this is function 1, this is function 2. So anyone is having difficulty in writing programming or trying to understand Latin things, you don't need to worry because we are going to make all these things very, very simple for you in this journey. Just I am introducing you with the various phases or elements that you are going to see. So let me mention here client side controller, okay, or also called as JS controller. This avoids. Now there was one interview question, why we need client side controller when we can, or let's say when we can, so when we have done many previous work in classic without that. Okay, this is the popular interview question is asked. So see here, first of all, meanwhile I think there is a question in the chat box, let me check it. Okay, so there is a question, we cannot use Apex as a controller. Is it mandatory for JS? Okay, I'm just going to come to that only. In fact, this, when you will understand the question which I wrote, you will automatically get the answer. Okay, so please wait for 2 minutes and you will get the answer. So here, why we need to use this? Because from last 17 years, 16 years, we never used any client-side controller when Salesforce started in 1999. And why suddenly we are saying that JavaScript controller is needed or the client-side controller needed? Please note, previously there was a big drawback in Salesforce. Suppose this is customer, and let's say this is customer's browser, and you know very well that browser means client and Apex class means server. Okay, because browser or the Visual Force page things which ultimately works on browser, that runs on the system or laptop of customer, so it's called as client. So this is client side environment and this is server side environment. Okay, now let's say here this is Salesforce server where we are writing Apex class and all the business logic. Okay, so previously what used to happen, and this is UI, that is markup, that is ultimately related to Visual Force page. So previously what used to happen is whenever you have done anything, any small business logic or any kind of activity, you press the button or you just enter the value, and then after that whatever business logic you have to do, you have to directly contact a server, make a server connection, and then come back with the result. Now let's say you want to do some small validation. You know very well that if you want to do the validation at the beginning level only, then you have validation rule in Salesforce. But if your validation rule is very complex and it's going to be only possible by checking multiple things in the database, or let's say in multiple objects or something like that. In this case, you want to fire a validation. Then what is the option for that? Can anyone tell the answer? And before you type, ensure that you are selecting Shekhar. Yes, very good. So correct answer. Meanwhile, there is one more question about the client side controller. Just wait for a few minutes. I'm coming to that only. That topic is not started yet. So wait for a few minutes. Now see here, the answer is correct. If you're having some complex validations and you cannot fulfill by validation rule, then the solution is go for the client side validation, that is do in the Apex class. Write your logic in Apex class, and from that you need to throw error, that is by writing the function called as add error that you all know there's in classic. So in this case here, every time you are making connection to server, it is actually nothing but reducing your efficiency, which internally hampers, and which if you check by multiple benchmarks, then as compared to other products in the competition of Salesforce, This was a drawback for Salesforce. But now what is going to happen is you don't need to again and again contact to server. Here the interesting thing will happen is you as a customer start any work which is related to or which is coming from lightning component. Then first of all, this is your laptop, and on your laptop you have browser, and browser is nothing but client. So this is client side environment. Okay, now if you're trying to access something or you're trying to perform something, you press on button, or you instead of age, like age 20 30, you just mention text value, something like this. These are wrong things. In this case there is a new entry called as client side controller only, which is written in JavaScript, so that you don't need to again and again waste the connections and go to the server, which is still there, and it's still in server side controller, and it is still in Apex class, in Apex code. So now there are many situations where you don't need to connect to Apex class. Here you want to handle some kind of situations, okay, no problem, work in JavaScript. You want to store some kind of data and perform some functionality, okay, do that in JavaScript. Or you want to just make some kind of data fetching and some basic level calculations and all, you don't need to do some complex calculation by fetching some SOQL SOSL, do it JavaScript. And this way many things are there which we can do at JavaScript without making connection to server. So this controller is called as client side controller, written purely in JavaScript. Then after that, if in rare cases, let's say you want to fetch some kind of data from database, or let's say you want to perform some kind of complex calculation like wrapper class and all these things, and you want to write, then in such all cases you want to do integration, in all such cases then you go for the server side controller. So this way the efficiency increases, and because of this only lightning now became as a big competitor to many products in the industry which are mostly focusing on JavaScript. Salesforce before 2 years was not focusing on JavaScript and started facing the problem in terms of the reach and the growth. Now Salesforce is focusing on JavaScript. Automatically, Salesforce became now one of the top player in the industry, which we will see now in future that how Salesforce will again remain the number one for many years. Now a question may come in your mind that here, if JavaScript is so is important, then what about us? So do we need to work on JavaScript and learn JavaScript? Absolutely important. Yes. If you don't know JavaScript or if you can't understand JavaScript, then you cannot do Lightning programming. Simple. And if you don't know JavaScript or if you have no idea about JavaScript, then good news for you that the course which is designed in this training program, which includes JavaScript essential learning as well. It includes the CSS essential learning as well. It includes, if you are completely zero in Apex programming, you never did any Apex programming, for that also it includes some kind of help from Apex learning as well. So in short, you are coming from any background, that doesn't matter, some basic idea of programming and some good idea of Salesforce admin is enough for this journey. Fine, let me continue with that notes. So I hope you got the answer. There are two questions that what is client side controller. So I told the JavaScript that we use, the bundle in that here. Okay, so this is client side controller which we write at the client side, and this is the business logic which we can do without hitting the servers. Yeah, welcome. Now coming back to the question about using the server side controller. So please note, it doesn't mean that only we are going to continue with Java's client side controller. No, we cannot do this, because I just told you before some time, if you just rely on JavaScript controller, then how about database connections, fetching data, writing queries, or writing wrapper classes like complex situations, or writing some computations which comes from various objects and all? How you are going to do this? So for all these cases, we need server side controller, that is Apex class. So Apex class also will be there in our journey, in lightning journey or jobs that you are going to work, and this JavaScript controller also will be there. Okay, so let me now mention here something about this, the client side controller, the benefits. So this avoids uh, trips to server and and gives us solution without hitting the server. In classic, we used to hit server every time, making the impact on efficiency, but here we will hit rarely, only when we need. Okay, otherwise we are not going to hit. I think the screen is paused by mistake. Let me just open the screen. It was paused by mistake. Now you can see. So this is the uh, so this is now the important thing you need to be ready with. Next thing, in this controller, in this controller, so event handling activity is done. Now this handles the events related to end user. Now this is one of the very important topic for your future. The event handling is so important that how much strong you are going to be in event handling, that much strong you will be in the lightning journey. So we are going to put lots of efforts in the event handling, because if you are good in event handling, then it will become very easy for you to master the lightning things. And because of that only, you can see, unlike the other training programs or unlike the other institutes or trainer, I have put a special topic on event handling only because I want you guys to be very strong in event handling. This is complex also, not so easy, and very much necessary. So you can see we have spent lots of points. We are going to work on this event handling, and we are going to make this strong. So generally people in other training gets the event handling just like a simple topic: event handling, Salesforce, types of event handling, component and application. That's it, close. This is generally the training programs, but no, I know how much important. So I'm going to spend how lots of time in this event handling by explaining you various use cases. Okay, now let's go for the next thing, that is related to the designing and all. So here let me show you the bundle again. Now see here, now let me click on helper. Now see here, what is helper? I'm showing you this example because you guys should understand exactly how we use these things in real-time project. Because just by saying okay, helper is this and controller is this and style is this, you will not get anything. You need to understand exactly how the code is written. No matter you don't understand this code, because that we are going to do now in tomorrow's session, but you first of all understand what actually we do there. Okay, so next is helper. Now this helper is very essential if you are going to follow the ideal structure of lightning component. What actually it will do, let me tell you one by one. First of all, see, the way Salesforce says that don't try to write the business logic in Trigger and do the business logic in Apex class, right? You know these things, you are coming from classic. So apart from that, don't write the like the trigger should be logicless, and write all the logic in your write all the logic. Now this is one example uh, where the helper functionality is used. Okay, so this helps us to work on the best practices of the lightning. Let me just show you the code. So see one scenario how we use the helper. Okay, so now let me tell you about this. So fourth thing that we are seeing is helper. Now this also is written in JavaScript. Okay, this is also written in JavaScript. Okay, and next important thing, this helps this helps to be closer with best practices of the coding. So the functionality with coding best practice. Okay, so see, if you remember the classic where we say that our business logic should not be in the trigger, only the redirection mechanism should be there, and from that whatever apex class you write the code here, the business logic. This is what actually we saw and we learned, and we strictly avoid writing code in trigger, because if you say yes we can write the code in trigger, no one will hire you in that company, because they know this is the worst practice. Now why so? Why we do this? Because we try to ensure that our code should be reusable and sticking more and more toward the standards like object oriented programming structure. Similarly in lightning, even though I can do so many things, even though I can do so many things in the controller, the JavaScript controller, I can do so many things. But just look at this. We avoid writing here also many things unless it is just some kind of validations and all. That's it. So every entity has fixed role and responsibilities. So you should be able to understand which entity is for what purpose. And this way, the mistakes like writing the business logic in trigger can be avoided very easily. And this is one of the very important focus area that we are going to do in our training. We are not going to follow any bad standards, and we are going to regularly discuss about this best practices. So you will not do any kind of mistake in your career. So please note, this is also written in JavaScript. This helps to be closer with coding best practices. Here, when we need to connect to server, that is of course apex class, then as per lightning design we need to do that by helper. Means we must go to helper first, and from that we need to call a specific apex class, and that is what exactly I told you in the previous session, where actually I told you how is the cycle of this lightning. So in this case, please note that whenever we are going to work on any kind of such structure or environment, the most important thing you need to understand is we should first of all get the idea that how will be the structure. Let me just show you 1 minute. And this is what we discussed as an overview in the previous session. Let me open that PPT. So if you remember, I told you this, that even though you can even though this is available for you and helper is available for you, but please note, here you will just do some kind of event handling activity and some validations. Okay, and after that the entire business logic of calling the apex class will be present here. Okay, so please note this point. So here we just do event handling and validation, and suppose you need some kind of data from the database. Here you have database, so this will be coming by this, and you cannot do this. This is wrong. You must call this, and from this you are going to call this, and this way we are going to work. So this is a very important thing. Many people who are new to lightning, they don't follow the standards. They directly call from this to this and they bypass this. Now if in interview they ask you to write some kind of mock code or something like that, and if you skip this, then you're gone. They are not going to hire you, because you're not even having the basic understanding or knowledge of this best practices. So understand this important things. Even by listening kind of this kind of things and you face some interviews, you can very confidently answer them from our training program. So here we write the things by which we need to connect to apex class. Now let me mention that in the notes. So helper is to be used as a mandatory process by which, or let's say mandatory phase, I would say. Oh, wait 1 minute. Now check. Helper is to be used as a mandatory phase by which we need to call functions from Apex class. Okay. So see here one example I will tell you how we call this Apex class. I'm making slowly close to this lightning programming thing. So pay attention. I'm intentionally I'm not making anything complex for you because I want you guys to be very confident, and that's the reason I'm going step by step. See here in the component I mentioned that this is the Apex class in which I'm interested. This is the Apex class in which I'm interested, which I mentioned in the component level only. And now from this Apex class I want to call the function. So look at this, I'm calling the function. Look at this. So there is a function called as get book list. Okay, that is written in the Apex class. So this way I can call it. Okay, so this way, first of all, write the component, and then from helper call the things. And if you have any validations to be done or any kind of check to be done, then already told you that you can do by controller. So here you can see I'm just writing some alert, I'm writing some kind of basic calculation, or even I can do here some kind of validations by showing error. You have done this mistake, this is wrong value, this is wrong, this is to be modified, etc, etc. Then after that the style. Now let's come to the style. Now here if you are interested uh, or if you're interested to perform any kind of CSS things and all, in this case we use style. Now let me show you one example from that also. Now, style is mostly used with the knowledge of CSS. Okay, so you can see this kind of code we write in the style, and that is again not so regular. So this is something which is related to CSS. So if you have any knowledge of CSS, very good. If you don't have any knowledge of CSS, nothing to worry. I'm going to even cover these things in our journey, so you will get some idea on that. So let me mention here. Next is style. Style. So if it is needed, then only we go for CSS. Okay, because there is one more thing which is very popular called as lightning design system, by which we get this kind of functionality. Let me show you. See, this is my component, for example, and look at this in the component. You can see this is one technique by which I can very easily give CSS. So I don't need to worry about now complex CSS, or even I don't need to be expert of CSS and all while doing lightning. Such kind of things make your work and life very easy. This is coming from Salesforce lightning designing system, part of our syllabus, nothing to worry. So in this case, by using this, your CSS becomes very easy and very handy. Without having much programming knowledge or CSS knowledge, you can very easily deal with this. But in some rare cases, when you want to control somehow or anyhow by your own, okay, then you go for this style and you decide what actually should be there, what should be the width, what should be the height, or what should be the border size, etc, etc. Okay, that you can do here. So we can easily give styling to our component using SLDS, also called as Salesforce Lightning Design System. My many previous batch students got job in this. Okay, Lightning Design System. So their work is not to write some kind of lightning code and all, but their work is to just make some change of Visual Force page and create the Lightning page, or modify the existing logic and make some changes in the designing system and all. So it is pretty much easy. So when we start learning this, you will understand it is not so difficult. So you also try to be very clear with this, because many jobs are there in industry based on this kind of SLDS things. But in those cases where we need our own design, we can use CSS. Example, let's say table border, or let's say for example header, uh, let's say header formatting, anything. It mostly relates, it's mostly similar to HTML CSS work we used to do in classic. So this actually more relates to the classic things, and SLDS, which is a new thing, which is more simple than this, relates to Lightning. So you should have some understanding of this also, and understanding of this also. Both we are going to see. Next, now you can see here documentation, which is mostly related to some kind of unused or a rare thing, where you will touch anything about this. You use very rarely. It is not at all uh, popular in the industry, because it's just something about some documentation you want to do, or some kind of your own writing, some kind of thing which is related to uh, let's say your description, a sample code. Okay, and let me just mention here. So mostly this will no one ask in the interview. Document. So this is used very rarely. Okay, we can mention some info references here, and also sample codes are written some cases. Okay, not so popular, not so used, so you don't need to worry about this, and don't take any headache of this also. Documentation, leave it. This is not something which is important. Next, now this renderer is something which they ask in the uh, interview. So what is this renderer? Let me just tell you. Again, used rarely. This helps to override the rendering UI of current project or current component, whatever you're doing. So in some cases where you need to just render the functionalities, and you want to implement some your own logic and all, in this case you can use this. For example, uh, a client side renderer, which will help you to override the default rendering. So it's mostly deletes with that. So rendering means how your lightning component is UI is displayed. So how you are able to see this. So if you want to make some changes in that, whatever look and feel your lightning component is giving currently, if you want to make some changes in that, then we do this in renderer. Very rarely we use. Next, design and then SVG. So this design and SVG, again these are the same thing, which are related to mostly designing things. Mostly the designing will help you to require for components, and use for Lightning app builder and Lightning pages, that you will discuss laterwards when we learn about that. Design, this helps in designing the app builder or Lightning pages. Okay, useful more in Lightning pages, which we show on record level or home page. So we can show this lightning page and we can create our own lightning page that we are going to see in upcoming sessions. So in this case, please note you are going to use this design. I think there is some kind of screen pausing problem with GoToMeeting. Anyways, it's getting just paused. Anyways, I will check it laterwards. And the next thing is SV. Now this important thing which we are going to understand as the last point of today's session, this SVG is nothing but if you want to create some custom icons or you want to use in your lightning component some kind of images and all, then we use this. So this is again rarely used. This helps to create our own icons. By the way, as steps are pretty complex, industry prefers using standard icons. So there are so many standard icons which you get like some kind of student or some kind of computer or some kind of company. There are many icons which you use here. Now this process is very difficult. If you are going to create your own SVG and all, it becomes very difficult sometimes to write the code and implement the functionality. So generally people in the industry don't use this SVG icons because you can see the complexity is something different. So lots of efforts we need to put, and ultimately what we get, the simple thing, some icons which we have already available in Salesforce. So this SVG, this design, this render and this documentation is something which is very rarely used. Component, controller, helper, very popular. Style, something which we do not so rarely and not so regularly. And document, render, design, SVG, rarely. So I hope you guys are now very clear and confident that if you're going to ask, if anyone is going to ask you, explain me the entire structure of lightning design, the components and all the bundle elements, I'm very sure you can confidently answer that. So that's all with today's session. And any question in today's session, let me know, or just we can proceed for the conclusion. Any questions, any doubts? Yeah, I'm going to send you this notes, nothing to worry. Okay, great. So guys, now let's continue in the next session. Have a great time. See ya.